Hi guys, I'm here today just to do a quick, super simple little beginner's tutorial showing a bunch of techniques and tricks and just a basic routine for applying makeup. I'm just getting ready here, getting my hair out of the way, and basically we're just going to start with as a primer. I'm going to use Nivea Men Sensitive Post Shave Balm. It's super soothing and feels really good, and you just basically take some out and rub it all over your face to put down as a primer. It sounds weird to use an aftershave as a primer, but it actually works really well in keeping your makeup in place, and I don't have super sensitive skin, but it works really well for that, I've heard, and it just feels really good. And after the primer is put down, you're just going to let it dry a bit, and then you can go in with foundation. I'm using L'Oreal True Match in Light Ivory. It's a little too yellow for me, and I'm trying to just use it up lately. I'm running out right now. I use it casually, daily, instead of my other kind of expensive one, but basically you just take it out and put it on your hand and dot it all over your face just to lay it down. Put it evenly all over so it looks more natural, and you're going to put it a little bit on your neck, which I'll do in a second, just because, like I said, it's a little too yellow for me, so I like to make sure it blends really nicely into the rest of my skin tone. And after I've applied all the dots, I'm going to be going in with a sponge. It's not a beauty blender, it's like an off-brand one I got on Amazon, but it works really well, and I've dampened it with some water, and I'm just blending in the foundation all over my face and making sure it is really blended so that, like I said again, it's a little too yellow for me, and I don't want it to look weird if it looks bad in, other light. And it's a lot of beating against your face, so. Next, I'm going in with concealer. I'm using Covergirl Ready Set Gorgeous in the lightest shade, and just putting it over any red spots and under my eyes in a kind of triangle shape. I know that the triangle shape works a lot better than if you just kind of dot it under your eyes and something. I don't really remember why, but it works the best. And I love this concealer. It works really well. I've been using it for a while. I use it in the lightest shade because I'm pale as fuck. And just after you've applied the concealer, you're going to go through with your sponge again and put it all over, just making sure to blend well again. This is a little lighter, so it also helps to brighten my face. And next, I'm using powder. I'm using Maybelline New York Shine Free Loose Powder in light, once again, because I'm pale as fuck. This is also a little bit too yellow for me. I couldn't really see it in the packaging when I bought it, but it's just a little too dark, so I don't use it for baking because that makes it too dark. But for now, it's good, and I'm just trying to use that up too. I use a big fluffy brush and just kind of tap it all over my face gently. This will set my makeup and control shine so I don't get too oily or anything. Next is brows. I just dyed mine, which is why they look really dark right now, but basically I use the Anastasia Beverly Hills Dipbrow Pomade in Auburn, but I also have the e.l.f. eyebrow kit in light, which is cheaper and good. I'm using a small flat brush, or you can also use a small angled flat brush, which works really well. The difference in the eyebrow things is not much. I just find that the Anastasia lasts a little more, and it just fills in a little better, so that's what I use. I use a spoolie first to make sure all my hairs are in place, and then I just outline the top and bottom of my brows, and then we'll fill in with the color to make sure it's all good and looking good. And I like to bake it a little darker on the outside, and then on the front of my brows I will use lighter strokes so that it's a little more of that cliche ombre-ish effect, and it looks a little bit more natural. I have blonde brows, which is why I dye them, so they will not be visible. And I'm just going to repeat on the other side to make sure it matches, try and make them as even as possible. And then after I finish filling them in, I'm going to go back in with my spoolie and just go over the brows again, because as you can see, they're quite bold, and I want to make them look a little bit more natural. And I'm just gonna make sure that they don't look too crazy or too filled in places, and they are now looking fine as hell. So that is the look you want to achieve, fine as hell. Next, I'm going to prime my eyes for eyeshadow. I'm using the Urban Decay Primer Potion in Eden, and you can also just use any old primer. I use this one because it has a little more coverage, and as a redhead, I have more pronounced veins on my eyes, which you can't see very well, but that really bothers me, so I like to use more coverage primer, and I'm just dabbing with my finger all over my eyes. And now I'm going into eyeshadow. I'm going to be using the Tarteist Pro Palette because it's got some nice neutrals that I think can be pretty universal. And I'm using a flat fluffy brush in the whitest shade so that I can put that down as a base on my eyes over the primer, and that'll make it easier to blend. And I'm basically just applying it from my lid to my brows, and it'll set the primer and make it easier for later. Now I'm going in with any old fluffy brush into this light brown tan shade, and I'm just going to buff it into my crease. Make sure it's really blended, and it's just to, again, help with blending for the next shade and to add some depth. And now I'm going into a darker brown and using it on the outer corner of my eye and in the crease again. Once again, making sure it's well blended and buffing into my eye with the fluffy brush. This brush is really nice. I'll put everything down in the description so that you can see what I'm using. I got these on Amazon, and this is my favorite. It just works really well for putting into the crease. Next, I'm going to use this flat brush and go into this kind of beigey, tanny, kind of red undertone shade, and just put it down on my lid so that when I put on my next shade, which I'm showing right now, is this gold sparkly sheer one, it'll just add a little something. And this, I'm putting straight onto my lid with my finger. I just find that gets the most pigment, and yeah. Next, oh, I love this palette. Showing you that. But next I'm going to be curling my eyelashes, which helps a lot if you don't use falsies, and it's not as scary as it looks. And now I'm going with my Better Than Sex waterproof mascara. It's the only mascara I have right now, so that's what I'm using. I'm just gonna basically apply it like any old mascara. I find that the Better Than Sex is really, really good. It's, of course, a little expensive, but I love it, and it works really well, and it does appear to be waterproof. It's really hard to get off, so that's why I might go for the regular Better Than Sex, but I really like it. Next, I'm going to be going in with a black pencil liner from Wet n Wild. It's just some random one I picked up at Walgreens, and I'm going to add a little definition to my eyes by lifting up my lid and applying to the waterline right at the base of the lashes. And this will just make a difference. As you can see, it's a little more dark, and it doesn't look like much, but it helps in making the final look a little better. And next I'm going in with bronzer. I'm using mine from the Grand Hotel Cafe from Too Faced, but alternatively you can just use any old bronzer. That was my e.l.f. one, which I've used it all up, so you can go in with a big fluffy brush or a pointed one for a more defined look, but I'm going to use the fluffy brush. And basically what you want to do is just buff the bronzer under the cheekbones, under your jaw, and along the hairline on your forehead. These are just spots where I'm not quite contouring, but I am adding bronzer just to darken places up and help shape my face a little more. I used to not use any bronzer, but I find that it makes my face look a lot more defined, and I really like that. And here I'm just going in under the jaw, and in a second I'm going to move up to the hairline. I do it like along your temples mostly, and then just fade it up a bit. I find if I do it too much on the top for hairline, it's weird. And now I'm using a fluffy brush again, and I'm going into the bronzer and using it along my nose. Basically, you're just doing the outsides of your nose, kind of, and then a little bit off to the side next to the nostril, and then just blend that in, make sure it's blended, and a little bit across the side, and that's a little bit of nose bronzing or contouring. And now I'm just going back in and blending really well because I don't want any harsh lines with the bronzer, and I want to make sure it looks really nice. Now I'm going into blush. I have this blush from the Grand Hotel Cafe, which I use a lot, but today I'm going to be using my e.l.f. cream blush in Rose Royalty, and then I'll be using this flat slanted top brush to blend into the apples of my cheeks and right above the bronzer. I've found recently that if you just put it in the apples of your cheeks, it can look a little weird, and it works a lot better if you blend it straight into the bronzer and right above it along your cheekbone, and it looks really, really nice, as you can see. And I also add a little bit to the tip of my nose. And next, I'm going in with my Mary Luminizer highlighter, which I love. I'm using this fan brush, which is actually just a paintbrush that I had, but it works really well, so I don't see why I wouldn't use it. And I'm just going to swipe the highlighter along the tops of my cheekbones, as you can see now, and then I'll be going in to the tip and the bridge of my nose, kind of between where I put the bronzer on my nose, and then I'll be putting it in the center of my forehead a little bit, my cupid's bow, and under my brows on the brow bone to highlight those spots. Highlighter basically just is applied to the highest points of your face to bring a nice glow to them, as you can see as I put it on. I really love how this highlighter looks on my nose. I find it gives a really nice highlight. Excuse me. And I'm just going into the brow bone now, and in a second I'm going to be putting my finger straight into the highlighter and using it to highlight my inner corners, which just adds a really nice pop to any eye look, as long as it's nicely blended. I find sometimes it can be a little too thick and you want to make sure it's looking smooth. And there's the highlighter. Now onto lips. I'm using Colourpop's Lippie Stix in, I don't know the shade color. I can't find it anywhere on the site, but I'm using a lip liner first that's very close to my natural shade, just to put down a base for the lipstick. And then I'm going to be filling in the outline of my lips and then filling in the inside of them, just to put down a nice base for the lipstick. I just said that, but you know, you get the picture. And then now I'm going to take the lipstick in whatever shade it is. You can see it's pretty close to the lip liner color, and just fill in my lips, top and bottom. Make sure not to go over the line and just kind of follow your natural lip shape. And that is it. Just a pretty basic tutorial to show you what I do sometimes, and I don't know, just have fun. There you go.